Good morning and welcome to today's discussion on the brave new job market. The Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce is proud to host this event in conjunction with the Brazilian Students Association, or BRASA, of the United States and Canada, and the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce. Today we have a wonderful panel of labor market experts and participants for a panel discussion on the future of the job market and the relations between Brazil, the US, and Canada. We have converted to a webinar so everybody can participate and have a better networking experience. So that was the reason for the change. And thank you all for attending. I am John Welch, Executive Director of the Brazilian American Chamber, and on behalf of the Chamber, we wish you all health and safety in this difficult time. Before moving to the panel, I'd like to invite my counterpart at the Brazilian Canadian Chamber of Commerce, Carolina Albernaz, to say a few words. Carol?
Hi, John. Thank you so much. And thanks for the partnership in putting this event together. Thank you, BRASA, as well, for the opportunity. As mentioned by John, I'm Carolina Albernaz. I'm Director of Business Development and Operations at the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce based in Toronto. We are a membership-based association, same as the Brazil-American Chamber of Commerce. And our main goal is to connect Brazil and Canada and strengthen the bilateral trade investment between both countries. So we've been working with John and the Brazilian American Chamber for a while. John is an old friend of the Chamber from when he lived in Canada, and we're very excited to be here and to be part of the discussion. So thank you, John.
Well, thank you very much, Carolina. Now I'd like to ask Rafael Monteforte Ferreira, the CEO of the Brazilian Student Association, or BRASA, and a panelist as well, to say a couple words. Rafael?
Hi, everyone. So first of all, thanks, John. Thanks, Carol, for the invite and the partnership in putting this together. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'm Rafael. I'm a current senior at Grinnell College, liberal arts college in Iowa in the United States, where I study economics and political science. And I'm also the CEO of BRASA, the Brazilian Student Association. I'll share my screen for a little bit just to talk a little bit about BRASA. I don't know if you can all see it. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
So BRASA, as I said, is the Brazilian Student Association, and our mission is to empower the next generation of Brazilian leaders. Since we were created in 2014 for a bunch of students who are based in the United States, we've grown a lot. And right now we have more than 90 chapters, local chapters in universities all over North America, Europe, and Asia. And our network has more than 10,000 students and 5,000 alumni. We're the largest association of Brazilian students abroad, and we work helping students to study abroad. So since they are in high school, we organize talks all over Brazil to inspire high school students. We create online material to make information more accessible for them, and we also have a free mentorship program. Since the beginning of the mentorship program, we've had more than 450 pairs of students. We pair high school students with college students so they can help them with their application process, all the tests, SAT, TOEFL, essays. I was a mentee of BRASA in 2016 back there. And I'm proud to say that if it wasn't for BRASA, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have been able to get a scholarship nor to get accepted in an American university. Also, like 85% of our mentees who are approved study right now in global top schools, not only in the US, Canada, but also in Europe and Asia. Also, we have like a commitment to enhancing opportunity and equality of opportunity to low-income students, and 92% of our current mentees come from public schools or have scholarships in private schools back in Brazil. Also, like we took a step further in 2019 when it comes about creating equality of opportunity, and we launched our scholarship program to help low-income students to attend the best universities around the world. So the Bolsas BRASA, our program has already 12 scholars, and they study in universities as Stanford, Columbia, Babson. They are really high achieving students who come from very, very, very low income backgrounds and who without the BRASA help wouldn't be able to study abroad. So we're really proud of being able to help them somehow. And I invite all of you to know more about our scholarship program today, because today is also Giving Tuesday, and we work with partners to be able to put all of this together and to help brilliant Brazilian minds to be able to study in the best universities in the world. Also, like throughout the year, we make 3 big events to connect our network. So we connect Brazilians in Brazil, in the US, and also in Europe. Some of our past speakers are there. John, we had the honor to welcome him last October in Boston for BRASA Summit. Not this year, I'm sorry, last October 2019. But yeah, and we connect students with current Brazilian leaders so they can get inspired, and they can also like be inspired to go back to Brazil and work with our country. So some of our partners are for current and past partners who have made all of this together. A big thanks also to BTG Pactual, Ambev, Vetex, and Magalu, who are our current biggest partners and mantenedores, who help us do all of this throughout the year. Thank you so much, and I'll be here to ask to answer any questions you may ask about BRASA and students abroad.
You're on mute, John.
You got me. I'm down 1-0. Sorry. Yes, you reminded me of something that seems like it was an eternity ago. It was very much a great thing to be able to speak at BRASA in Boston last year. But it goes without saying, 2020 has presented challenges for everyone, certainly in the labor market, and certainly for new entrants to the labor market. Although the pandemic has moved many companies to focus on hiring undergrads and recent graduates, the overall uncertainty has affected new hiring across all demographics. Our discussion today brings together this great panel and advisors, and we're going to talk about the prospects for 2021 and beyond. The discussion is also going to be relevant to those more experienced professionals and executives that are in the market. Our first panelist today is Charlotte Lee, Managing Consultant, Senior Vice President, Executive Coach, and ICEO at Lee Height Harrison, or LHH, one of the world's largest outplacement firms with over 300 offices in 67 countries. In her role, she is responsible for both leading the New York City and Stanford offices, as well as coaching senior executives through leadership, career transition in several industries. Ms. Lee has received many awards from LHH, including Global Coach of the Year for exceptional consulting coaching performance, and the firm Superstar Award for the #1 coach in the Northeast. Ms. Lee has appeared on CNBC, Bloomberg Radio, NPR, and interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Yahoo Finance. She is also the author of a book called Bring a Dead Mouse, The Secret to Finding Your Perfect Job, which has garnered 5 stars on Amazon. In addition to her many professional accomplishments, Ms. Lee is a certified literacy tutor and has taught conversational English to Chinese Americans for many years, is active in the New York City public school system, where she volunteers with Hire Heroes, a not-for-profit that assists veterans in getting civilian jobs. Ms. Lee holds a Bachelor's of Arts from New York University and is certified leadership practice analysis training. Our second discussant is Pedro Melo Trindade, who is a senior analyst at Scotiabank. Pedro graduated from the University of Toronto in June 2019, with a double major in international relations and Latin American studies. During his time at U of T, Pedro was responsible for reestablishing the local BRASA chapter and served as president for almost 2 years. Then we have an old friend, colleague, certainly a friend of the chamber, Will Landers, managing partner at BTG Pactual and head of Latin American equities at the asset management division. Prior to joining BTG Pactual in March 2019, he spent 17 years as head of Latin American equities at BlackRock, where he also was a member of the firm's global emerging markets team and a member of its investment stewardship committee. Previously, he worked for 7 years as a sell-side equity analyst at CSFB and Lehman Brothers, where we worked together, and Bear Stearns. He holds a BSBA in Finance and International Management from Georgetown University and is a CFA chart holder. Our final speaker is Rafael Montefejera, who you just heard. In addition to his role at BRASA, he is currently a senior at Grinnell College, where he studies economics and political science. He also spent a year in France studying at the University of Paris and in Sciences Po. Earlier this year, he became a Fundação Estudar Fellow. He is originally from São Bernardo do Campo, São Paulo, Brazil. You can find their full bios on the link provided in the reminder sent out yesterday and on the chamber website. Before we start, I would ask you to please stay on mute while others are speaking. If you want to ask a question or comment, please put it in the chat at the bottom of your screen and we will call on you. Between Carolina and I, we should be able to manage these questions and comments in the order that we see them. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Charlotte. Charlotte?
Good morning. Thank you, John. Thank you, team. This is very wonderful to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I thought I'd spend a couple minutes. I never want to hear that bio again, John. I'm going to burn that thing. First of all, I sound old. I mean, I sound incredibly old. Anybody who's done all those things is 103. So I'm here to tell you I'm not that old, one. Two, I love what I do. I have a great passion about helping people find not just jobs, but the right jobs. I'm not a headhunter. I'm a coach. So I wanted to say thank you and welcome to all of you. Thank you for spending your morning with us. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of a backdrop. I'm focused on the US market and have been for 40 years. And so I agree this is a challenging time. Of course, the pandemic has really made it incredibly more complex, both not just for the job market, but for the economy. I do think we're all a little worried about the recovery from this because the pandemic, which we all thought when I left my office on March 17th, I thought I'd be back in a couple of months. I would have taken all those shoes and jackets home if I knew I was going to be gone for over a year. They're all sitting in my office. And I'm not expected to go back until at least spring. So I think the pandemic, it's the length, it's the magnitude that has really thrown people off. So I do think the market is a challenging market all over the world. That's the difference as well. It's not SARS, it's not contained, it's global. As you know, we've had over 265,000 Americans die from COVID. So it is causing an incredible rift in the job market. I do think that the fact that the election is over, there's a lot of healing and a lot of change that has to occur. And I do think having the election behind us takes our eye back on the ball and away from the negativity that the elections sometimes in the United States are. So having the election behind us is positive. Unemployment's only hovering around 7%. We do expect it to go up, but we've all seen, for those of us who've lived a long time, we've seen it in double digits for long periods of time. So I do think there is some ray of hope for 2021. The vaccine is right around the corner. They're already talking about distribution. I have a good friend who works at Pfizer, and I will be at the back of the line. I don't have I'm not a healthcare worker. I'm not a social worker. I don't have an underlying physical ailment. I'm not going to get it for a year, at least. But many of the elderly and my daughter's a physician. She's at the front of the line. She will get it first. And so we're just going to have to keep our fingers crossed that the billion vaccines they hope to have done in 2021 actually comes to be. So a little bit of the backdrop, yes, it's a little bit of a difficult time, but people continue to land. We touch 500,000 clients a year annually at LHH in the world. And I can tell you that people are continuing to get jobs. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about some of the jobs that are out there in case you're still in school or you're thinking about retooling or you're thinking about upskilling. Now is the time to do that. So for example, anything that is technical is very much sought after. So anybody who's got a technical skill set, who builds platforms, who builds websites, who programs in Java, C++, or Python, project managers who have PMP, Agile, Scrum Masters, Lean, Six Sigma, any of those are sought after. Anyone who has data analytics, cloud, AI are all sought after. So if there are technical or engineer types on the call, hone those skills because they will be valued for always. Those and CPAs are always going to get jobs. Other pieces that we're seeing opportunistically are risk, compliance, forensics. Again, episodic, and it depends. Many of the risk people that the banks hired during the difficult times after 2008 have actually been released. And so you have to pick your spots on anti-money laundering versus, forensics, for example. And the last part that I'll say is anyone who generates revenues is, of course, to the front of the line versus people who are, like me, a cost center. Anyone who is a cost center is a nice to have, but not a must have. You don't have to have a coach. You don't. You can easily do without me. So anything that generates revenue also is at the front of the line. So those are pockets of opportunities in the marketplace where people are getting jobs every single day. Again, we're the largest in the world. We have a very, very large platform. And I can tell you that people are landing every single job. Every single day, someone's landing a job. It just takes substantially longer. And the most important piece of your job search is follow-up. You'd be surprised how much I spend talking about follow-up. I think people send an email and consider that follow-up, and I don't consider that follow-up. I've written a whole book about follow-up. And then the last thing I thought I'd do is just give you a couple of ideas. Again, if people are thinking about, I'm not fully baked, I'm still cooking, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and we all should be, think about upskilling. What other credentials should I get? What other certifications should I have? Because the more certifications you have and the more you are academically credentialed, the better off you'll be. So the market of tomorrow is going to look for people with strong technical skills, strong communication skills, reading, writing, communication skills. Multilingual is extremely well thought of. So anyone who is multilingual, if you don't speak Spanish and French and it's possible for you to do it and you think you could pick it up, pick it up. I'm half Chinese and I'm embarrassed to tell you my father would not allow us to do anything Chinese. So I'm a decent cook and I can whip up a very good dumpling at Chinese New Year, but I don't speak a word. We were not allowed to. And it was the biggest mistake of my life is not fighting him on that. And none of us kids speak a word. And one of the reasons I teach English to Chinese immigrants is it's because I'm ESOL and it's completely immersion in English because I don't speak Chinese. So the more languages, the better. The world, as you know, is flat and all the companies are global. So picking up languages would be great. Consulting and contracting. Please remember, consulting and contracting is great stuff. A lot of the jobs, they're not looking for full-time permanent people right now because they're trying to figure out what the money situation is going to be like for the next 3 years. So do consulting, do contracting, volunteer, join a board. A lot of boards have junior boards for young people. Join it. You'll meet a ton of people. You'll get good experience. You'll expand your brand. You'll expand your skills. So volunteer, consult, join a board, pick up a language. When we network, which I'm hoping you'll do today, it's one of the reasons I said to John, please make sure everyone puts their email and their name in the chat so that you're sharing it with each other in case there's someone on the phone today and the call that you want to follow up with. You should be expanding your network every day and you ought to have a metric. So if there's 52 weeks in a year and you meet 2 or 3 people a week, you're talking about 150 to 200 new people that you'll meet. You should be adding them to your LinkedIn and you should be growing your network in a big way because this is all about people and your ability to collaborate and communicate with strangers, not with your peeps, not with your friends, but with strangers. Many, many people, most people, more than 80% of people work for people they don't know. They don't work for friends and family. They work for people they don't know. So your ability to have impact with strangers is extremely important. So put a metric around your network. People say, oh yeah, I've been networking. And I say, okay, great. How many people do you have on your LinkedIn? I have 117. I say, well, it's funny. We talked last month and you had 114. So that means you added 3 people in 30 days. On a scale of 1 to 10, that's a 0. That's extremely low. And we're all overachievers. Everybody on this phone is an overachiever. That's very clear to me. So try to overachieve on the networking side. And then the last thing I'd say, the LinkedIn, keep it updated, keep it active. Don't just use it to connect with people, use it to comment, use it to post something. Use it in a way that you draw traffic to it. Just don't use it to connect people. And then the last thing I was going to talk about was upskilling. I do think if you were ever thinking about taking a class or getting that AML certificate, or maybe I won't do my master's now, I'll go back and do it later. Don't do that. I just talked to my nephew. He's graduating with his master's, and his mom my sister had wanted him to leave school, leave university and get a job. And I thought he should stay the extra year and get his master's. And I won that battle. My sister's still mad at me, but I won that battle because the more education and credentials you can get when you come out into the market, you differentiate yourself from the other, million people who are coming out. So differentiation is what you're going for. So think about how to upskill and ask your mentor, ask someone, ask John, ask Will, what is it that's valued? And they will tell you. That's all I had today, John. I hope that was helpful.
That was great. As always, thank you. Thank you very much, Charlotte. Now we're going to turn it over to Pedro and hear what north of the border looks like. Pedro.
Well, first, John and Carol, the Chambers and Braza. Thank you for having me. I'm hoping that with my talk, I can share a bit about my firsthand experience diving into the job market and what it looks like from the perspective of a pre-COVID job hiring to a pre-COVID, post-COVID job hiring. I recently, Charlotte made a very good point stating that you should be looking out for opportunities that are not only full-time permanent positions, but also maybe start looking at opportunities where companies can offer you contract roles. And that's actually ties very closely to what I did. I joined Scotiabank a year ago under a contract role, and my contract just ended in October, and I was obviously looking for other opportunities. And the one thing that I've noticed is how drastic the changes were in the processes of hiring. First of all, in my first job, when I was looking for a job, I remember very vividly that I had to actually fly out to Canada to do an interview at a different company from Brazil, all the way from Brazil to do an in-person interview. I had to do in-office assessments, which right now it's a completely impossible reality. Like, we cannot go back to an office to have that that interview. We cannot go to an office just to do an in-person assessment or work on a casework. Most of the interview processes that I've had recently were all based from home, which is also a great thing in terms of managing the stress that you get when you're going to that interview. It is a lot more comfortable for some people to have an interview at home where you're at the comfort of your office space, preparing for that interview, having your notes, and you can rehearse and do everything virtually. One thing that I really tried doing is I reached out to my friends who were also in the same process, and we were practicing interviews, and it really is capturing that what a recruiter is seeing through the camera. You can record yourself and just keep trying to improve and repeating that exercise to really master that interview skills. And I have a few takeaways from my experience. Well, first one is that networking is key, as Charlotte mentioned. I think that the no you already have. It's really up to you to go after that yes and chase that yes. It is true that this pandemic has added some additional obstacles to finding a new job, including the fact that now you're going to be faced with a bit of a larger competition, especially in some cases even a more experienced competition for entry-level jobs, because a lot of people have lost their jobs. So you're now facing not only other entry-level competitors, but also more experienced candidates. The question then becomes, how can you do things differently? I think that the first thing that I learned is that you cannot be shy. Don't be shy, because while these new obstacles might be overwhelming during this period of social isolation, some things have given us opportunities to innovate. And with hiring processes moving virtual, take this as an opportunity to leverage some of what technology can offer. I've mentioned that this process has made the hiring process a lot more comfortable. You are doing everything from the comfort of your home, and you don't have to do those travels to the office to get those in-person interviews. A lot of people are more comfortable to reach out to someone via email or text rather than have an in-person coffee chat. Do those virtual coffee chats, they help connecting to those people, not only on the surface level, but like you actually can get to learn a lot more about their experiences virtually, as opposed when you have like a restrained time limit on like an in-person coffee chat. Don't be shy to reach out to that friend who works in the industry you're interested in. They might find you the right path of getting you to the point where you want to be. Or if they are not able to help you, they will at least point towards the right direction. And if you don't have a connection in the industry, as Charlotte mentioned, don't be shy to send that LinkedIn request and ask for a virtual coffee chat. Because I think that the one thing that people love doing is sharing their experiences, and which is something that I certainly do like to do. And it's whenever I get a request to have a coffee chat and kind of like go about how my experiences in my field, I get very excited and I really am happy to share my experiences. The second point is technology is your ally. Again, reach out to that, if you're a student, reach out to that professor who you admire, or even participate on events that organizations you're a part of, such as the chambers or BRASA organize. I am very aware that BRASA has taken some great initiative, and probably Rafael can talk a bit about the BRASA Global Summit, which has enabled students to participate in roundtables, master classes, and such as Capacita BRASA, which would definitely help students prepare for challenges in the new job market. And last point is, don't be frustrated if you don't get that one job. In times of uncertainty, it can be very demotivating to receive rejections. But it's not the end of the world. There are thousands of other opportunities out there for you to take on. I think that, again, another thing that Charlotte mentioned is that you really have to prepare yourself, do your homework. How can you improve yourself? How can you improve your education? This is something actually I did. I actually work with AML in the bank, and I actually did a certificate in AML, and that kind of opened some doors for me to enter the industry as a recent graduate. Don't have that a negative mentality when applying for a job just because you got a rejection. Share your frustrations with your friends and family if that helps. They might be experiencing the same things, and then you can just bounce off ideas with them on how you can do things better. It's something that I was doing with some of my friends, actually. An example to point out the importance of networking. I actually was talking to a friend, helping her finding a job, and I was like, listen, it's very important that you reach out to your connection because they can show you the right path of getting this job. Turns out she didn't really do the reach out. She got the interview, but the hiring manager for that position decided not to move forward with the application. A few days later, she reached out to a connection she knew, and that connection actually put her in contact with the director of that company. So it's kind of like the way that you do things can take a different perspective on what the outcome might be of an interview. So it's very crucial that you do not only expand your connections, but leverage them. And I think that last but not least is trust yourself and keep that positive attitude. Here, actually, I'll quote André Esteves, the CEO of BTG Pactual, in the BRASA Summit in April. And this is a game of resilience. And the only certainty is the obstacles. Be ready to do your homework and know that success is hard to achieve, but it can be achieved. And trust in yourself. I think that's all. I hope that was helpful, John.
That was very helpful. Thank you very much, Pedro. And speaking of BTG, let's hand it over to Will. Will?
Thanks, John. Nice to be here with all you guys. So also Brazilian by birth, been in the US since I was 14, so I went to high school and college here. Thank goodness that I graduated in 91 and not this year, because competing with all of you, with everything that you do versus what I was doing back at my years at Georgetown, I don't think I would get a job. I also do interviews for Georgetown for kids coming into Georgetown, and I see that it's turned so much more competitive across the whole place from high school to college to get a job. And I agree with what Charlotte and Pedro have said. You have to be persistent. You have to use your networks the best way you can. I'm one of those people that I'm always trying to help folks that look for, whether it's through Georgetown, whether it's through LinkedIn. I think those types of contacts are super important. I think it's interesting when one of Charlotte's comments that most people don't work with people they know. Every job I've gotten was actually through a network contact of mine. So it was somebody that knew me, who got me, who told me about the position, put me in contact with the right person. And I think that's where the networking is going to come in. You know, most of us are hiring via the internet, so you have to apply to the internet, and hundreds, if not thousands, of people are applying. And for you to stand out, not only do you have to have a strong resume and have the experience and all that, but in a place like BTG, some of the big organizations, we clearly having somebody that can put in a good word with HR, say, hey, I know this candidate, we've talked, he or she showed an interest on X, Y, and Z, we had these discussions. I think that's going to help you quite a bit. I saw there was a question on the chat about going back to Brazil, work with Brazil, can you do it remotely? I don't think any of us really know what the world's going to look like once we get through the next year, and all of us that want to be vaccinated or have to be vaccinated will be vaccinated. But I know that at BTG, we definitely feel that there is a culture of working together where calls like this, whether, you know, we use Microsoft Teams pretty much most of the day, they work. I've been working remotely with my team even for my days at BlackRock, because we had, you know, I was part of the emerging markets team, so we had folks all over the world. So we were using technology that's not as good as what we have today to do this communication. But there's still a value in terms of, you know, we're hoping that the next time we do this, we can be together in a room and then still have that connection via Zoom or via whatever it is. But I think there's still value for being face to face to a certain level. But I'm not sure if I'm going to still be traveling twice a month like I was before March hit this year. But I think that for Brazil, I think the good thing is that while we were the hardest hit country in terms of the equity market performance, in terms of the currency performance, our economy wasn't the hardest hit. I mean, GDP in Brazil is only going to be down about 4.5% this year. So yeah, there's a lot of unemployment there, and especially in the service sector. But I think when you look at the financial sector, when you look at some of the manufacturing, they're coming back strong. At BTG, we've been hiring throughout the year, but especially in the last quarter, and especially for our digital retail unit, where we're looking to, you know, become even more competitive with folks like XP, who are clearly the leaders, but BTG has been coming up strong as well. So I think some of the comments that Charlotte made about what are the skills that folks are looking for are exactly what people like BTG and XP and Itaú and JP Morgan and everybody else are looking for. It's for folks to have that mentality that probably John and I would have a harder time delivering on in terms of being able to do the programming and being able to do the web scraping and being able to use all that information to be a better banker, a better investor, a better consultant. So absolutely, I think you have an advantage on that, having been born and raised in this environment already. But John, I think we have a lot of comments already. Let me stop here, and then hopefully through the Q&A we can answer some of the questions from the folks on the line.
Thank you very much. Well, that's a great compliment to what we heard before. Just one thing, don't be shy. That was a great, every one of the panelists so far has echoed that. And you really, if there's some frustrations in this, there always are, but hooking up with past people that used to know, maybe don't ever put that aside, because usually people are generous. It's a rare person that's not. And it's one of the best things to keep you going. is how generous people are. And I count everybody on this panel as in that particular category. So let's turn it back to Raphael. Raphael.
Yes.
Out in Iowa.
Yeah, as I said, I'm a senior at college right now. But instead of talking about my own experience, like I'm in the middle of the recruiting season and looking for jobs as well, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've seen at BRASA with all the students abroad. So when the pandemic first hit back in March, April, we saw the class of 2020, the folks that were graduating at the time, really anxious and scared about what was coming to them. And many of them didn't have jobs yet. Most of them who were going back to Brazil were facing a very urgent reality at the time. So we saw folks like really applying to many more jobs than usually and getting a longer period of like unemployment between college and the job market. Also at the time, we've seen many summer programs, like summer job programs, summer internship programs being canceled. So as BRASA, we created an initiative with 10 of our partner companies, which was called BRASA Summer Journey, and which gave opportunity to like some 100 Brazilian students that were abroad to intern in Brazilian companies during the summer, everything remotely, and which was a great experience for both the companies and the students. So talking with the companies for the next few years, because of that experience, they're thinking about like changing their programs to either hybrid models or completely remote models, like when looking to Brazilians that are abroad, because they've seen they could reach even more students doing their programs online this year, because students didn't have to go back to Brazil during the summer to go like in person to the company, and companies could reach a more diverse set of students that were in many countries around the globe at the time. And so BRASA Summer Journey was also like a great experience to actually like provide students with opportunities during the summer, as many of them had lost their jobs, their summer jobs at the time. And also talking about my class, the class of 2021, folks who are going to graduate in May next year, what we see is that everyone is trying to get like a step ahead. And then we've started seeing people recruiting even earlier this year, because everyone knows the job market is going to be more competitive, because there are still folks from last year who haven't got their jobs and who are going to be competing with us. So students are still anxious. Not all the programs are as big as they used to be. Some companies have canceled their entry level programs, and we know that the job market is getting more and more competitive. At the same time, as Charlotte said earlier, as Charlotte said earlier, companies are eager to hire tech workers, so software engineers and people who studied computer science or even some kind of engineering. They are really well off in the midst of this pandemic, because companies are trying to go everything online, and we're talking about like the industry 4.0, and all the companies are trying to work online and to create online products. So people who work with this transition are really the ones that have more door opens for them right now. So yeah, those are the trends that I've seen. I also like can talk more about my own experience later, but I was really contemplated by the other talks. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
very
Pedro,
much.
I just want to say well done on the leadership. I will say, having hired a ton of people, leadership is something that starts very young. As you know, I tease, I'm a grandma now, and my granddaughters are what we call leaders. And you can see it at a very, very young age. But the good news is, if you don't consider yourself a leader, by taking leadership positions in volunteer organizations, in your university, in some professional affiliation, in an affinity group, you are showing leadership. And I think it's important to differentiate yourself in the marketplace, and you do so by being a leader. And everyone on this phone has to think to themselves, okay, how did I prove my leadership this year? What did I do during COVID that separates me from the pack? What am I putting on my LinkedIn? What am I posting on my LinkedIn? And what's new on my resume that shows me as a differentiated executive and a leader? And if you can't say that, then you need to sort of step it up. And so I wanted to commend you that you are a leader. A young leader, a very young leader, says a very old leader.
So before we take another question from, thank you, Charlotte. Please, everybody turn your cameras on, and I'll put it on matrix for now. You know, I do know who you are. I sent you each an individual message. Please turn your thing on. We'd like to see you. And I'll, you know, I can look up your email address later. So. Anyway, Vinicius, Granja, you're there. Okay, go ahead and ask your question. I know you've reframed it a little bit, but.
Yes, with Charlotte Lee. So now that there's a huge shift, you know, many things are moving online. So it seems for people to sell their service abroad is becoming even easier. So so I'd like to know, like, I first question about Brazil, but I think let me reframe it to maybe a market that you have worked with. How was that done in the past, and how you see it to be better done now with this shift?
I'm not sure it's done better. It's always been done through network and the internet. So there's something called freelancers, for example, and there's something called Fiverr, Fiverr. And you can sign up for it if you have a skill. For example, when I started a website for my book, you could go on Fiverr, and all these people who create websites that you've never heard of and never met offer their services. And you can get recommendations, you can get referrals, you can call people who've used them. You can get different pricing. So it's very easy now. There's a gigantic industry. It used to be a cottage industry many years ago. And now it's a gigantic industry to offer your services online. You can build your own website. You can build your own traffic. You can put it on your LinkedIn. If you have a large LinkedIn network, they become your foot soldiers in talking a little bit about who you are and what you do. You can do some free work for people who are well connected, because if you do free work for people who are well connected, they connect you to their market. And so that's something that's worth doing. So some of those are possible to do. I do think the market is not as robust as it has been. And so there is less of that than ever, but I definitely think it's worth trying. And it's mostly starts typically word of mouth. And then some of the websites, the larger websites like Fiverr, for example.
Good. You need to convince your brother to put his camera on. Okay, so it'll confuse the blazes out of us, but get him to do it. Okay, I'm gonna start calling names out. You know, I have the list in front of me.
I think that's funny, John. Speaking of not being shy, I forget who mentioned it, but you know, shy doesn't get it done typically, I'm afraid. I always felt badly for 90% of the world, because 90% of the world are introverts. 5% are extroverts, and the other 5% are introverts faking being an extrovert. So there's a great book out by Susan Cain called Quiet, and it turns out most of the world are introverts. So you are in good company. I'm one of the few extroverts I know, but you can fake it. And my attitude is you have to get used to being on Zoom. You have to be used to being seen on Zoom. You have to get good at communicating. You have to get good at building rapport. You have to have people feel your passion through a phone and through a teeny, teeny, tiny little camera. Because if you don't practice in a safe place like here, when you do get that interview, which you've been dying to have, either your technology won't work or something goofy will happen, or you'll find out the lighting is behind you and you're completely in shadow and they never saw your face. So little things like this seem silly, but they're incredibly critical. And it's also your brand. You don't want your brand to be that you're hiding. You want your brand to be out there. Even if I make a mistake, I'm out there. If I make a mistake, I make a mistake. It's better that you're out there making a mistake than not trying.
Yes, Charlotte, all of you, it's probably hard for any of you that know me to believe this, but I said 2 words in high school. I was so shy. I wouldn't say a word. And now I can't shut up. So
here, John. I'm with you.
I have a captive audience twice a day with my group. And that's the other thing, just to mention, you know, you should try to set up things. We heard it from a couple, Rafael and Pedro. Try to set up a regular meeting, even if you're still looking for a job, with a number of people. With our own, the minute, you know, I started studying as much as I could of how you manage a team remote. We went the first week of March as well, Charlotte. And, you know, we have a morning meeting and a coffee break every day. Sometimes we just do stupid stuff. You know, one of our guys, Roger, is really good at imitating Jim Henson. So he brings out all his puppets and stuff. Just the kind of contact and things like that is always important. As I said, one of the things that I found in trying to increase my network is that people are very generous. And especially when you find someone you used to know, you had, oh, should I call him? I'll call him. And I think you'll be surprised. It's a rare event when someone says, don't bother me, or has that attitude. So anyway, maybe Carolina, maybe you can give us a glimpse into what's going on in Canada just a bit in terms of the job market as well. I mean, we got, both.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar, to be honest. I'm going to kind of echo a little bit of what Charlotte mentioned in terms of sectors, like financial sectors, technology. There's no shortage of jobs. Like based on the stats, in October, basically 3/4 of the unemployment or the jobs that were lost in the beginning of the pandemic were recovered again. And now, of course, we're going into a second wave here in Canada. So there's probably going to be a slowdown in hirings for the next couple of months. But there is, of course, industries that are not affected by it. A lot of digital transformation happening. So anyone that has technical skills or any kind of diploma, software engineers, you can find a job very quickly here in Canada. Another thing that is interesting as well is Canada is very open in trying to recruit American tech workers, right? In terms of, because of the immigration opportunities and how much easier it is to immigrate to Canada as a foreign worker as to stay in the US. Canada has just announced that they wanted to welcome over 1.2 million young immigrants by 2023. And this is basically their way of combating the aging population and trying to bring more qualified immigrants to Canada. So again, for young professionals, international students, if you wanted to look to do a master's in Canada, please come. There's a lot of opportunities for you to immigrate and to get a job here as well. So, and then on the important part, I think networking, again, this is an echo and it's going to be repeating, but know how to network online. It is possible. You don't need to go meet someone in a coffee shop. LinkedIn, a huge tool, maybe not as popular in Brazil, very big in Canada. Don't just connect with someone, engage with someone, ask questions, ask for mentorship, be active, like Charlotte said, post stuff, show your thoughts, like expose yourself on LinkedIn, because you are going to be watched, and it's a very powerful tool for you to differentiate yourself from the other candidates that are applying for that same job. And again, I think that basically these are kind of my few sentences as well, but connect with people, like connect with associations like us, volunteer, again, very huge. What we work with a lot of Brazilian students that are in Canada on a volunteer basis, and what we do for those volunteers is that we connect them with possible employers. We do recommendations on LinkedIn. We help them to prepare themselves for the next jobs. We give tips on how to behave on an interview process, or how to connect with people, because it is a learned skill, and you only get better. The more you do, the better you get, and you see that this is going to pay off in the future for sure.
I had two ideas. I love that, Carolina. Thanks. That was great. I'd love to move to Canada. I adore Canada, always have. Last year we went to Ottawa and did the ice skating down the canal, all of us. I'm an ice skater, so I love the winter. So I can't wait to get back up there. I love your ideas all about LinkedIn, and I wanted to just expand on two things. One is, when you send LinkedIn connections to people, please remember to customize it and to put a note on it. I get hundreds of invitations and I decline, I'd say 95% of them. I don't know these people. They're strangers, they're random, they're not my network. I don't know them. They don't put anything in there. I just ignore it. So please remember to customize your LinkedIn invitations. That's one. Two is, please remember that in the interest section at the very bottom of your LinkedIn, you should be following 6 places where you'd like to work next. Remember, they're looking down there. And if you want to work at BTG, make sure you're following them in the interest section at the end of your LinkedIn. So those were 2 ideas I had.
Yeah, no, this is definitely important. And I mean, again, it's all about making that first impression, right? Like, I'm with Charlotte. I receive like millions of connections a day, and I also do not accept everyone because it's just random. as soon as someone puts like why they wanted to connect with you and how you can add to them, or how they can add to your network as well, because it's not about giving, it's about kind of like being a win-win for both sides, then you have a bigger chance of having that person even like connecting with you or booking a 15-minute call or mentor you in some sort of level. So that's very, very important as well.
I have a question, Carolina, is in regard to Canada. So, I mean, during Trump, people that I worked with, many of them is the OPT or H-1B visa.
Yeah.
And it became incredibly hard, right? Even hiring for people with those visas becoming hard. So many companies are focused on people who has documentation. And then Canada became a plan B. So I was all my friends. So, and my question is, who would be a contact in Canada that people could inform about of this new wave of talents that Canada is open up for people here, especially in the United States?
Well, there is, we can connect offline, but I mean, you can contact me. I can put you in contact with some immigration consultants that we work with that can help you. I'm not an immigration consultant, so I'm not legally allowed to give any immigration advice, but Canada definitely has specific programs, especially for young professionals and recent graduates in terms of next steps. They take the priority for them is based on like where you study, your experience, how you know Canada, and getting the Canadian experience. That's a big thing here. So either through education or through job experience. If you're a tech worker and if you're a software engineer or a tech worker, it's probably very easy. There's a couple immigration programs that are focused on those sectors as well. You can get a visa in up to 2 weeks, depending on your specialty, to work in Canada. And then after gathering that work experience, you can apply for permanent residency as well. So it's of course a process, but it's much easier than US. And even Canada, based on what I heard, they had like a big outdoor posting in Silicon Valley saying Canada is open for you, come work for us. And you see the trend on the big technology companies setting up offices here. You have now the biggest VC venture capital firms from Silicon Valley setting offices in Canada as well, because they're looking at this revolution and they're looking how Canada is investing into their innovation ecosystem and trying to really attract the best of the best. And I think their immigration programs is definitely aligned with their long-term strategy in terms of growing that space.
Canadian immigration policy is much more rational than our own. They certainly target different demographics, which would make sense, especially with, you know, a couple of us getting towards that Social Security age, since we're going to have a deficit this year for the first time. But the universities are fabulous. The universities are great, and they're much cheaper than the United States.
Another thing, right? Exchange rate. Yeah.
Like University of Toronto, is in the top 10 in the world. And, you know, when they first said UT, I'm like, I was a professor at the University of Texas. I thought, Texas, what's University of Texas doing? I'm talking about Toronto in that case, but the universities are really, really good. We tried to get someone from Ryerson on the panel. We weren't able to this time, but we will do this again. Unfortunately, we're going to lose Charlotte. She has to go, but she will see you again. And certainly if you want to get in touch with her, please do it through you'll have much more effectiveness if you do it through the chamber. And I'll help you if you want to connect with her. But as she said, she throws out 95% of the things she gets on LinkedIn. So you sort of have to know her. So please go that way. Anyway, the immigration situation in the United States is confusing. Canada's immigration laws are not completely consistent, but they're a lot more consistent than here. I had to deal with both of them, of course. And it's, you know, they do target demographics, and you guys are all in the demographic that they're targeting.
You are.
Not so much me.
Recent young graduates. If you're under 35, if you're under 30, your chances of coming to Canada are much bigger than us that are a little bit north of that, right, John? So
I was over 30 when I went there, but it was purely and simply off networking. My clients pointed me in the direction of CIBC, as well as people on the street, and I had like 3 times. So I leave it to God. God is the one that chooses much better for me. You never know why you lose a job that you really want, and then you end up being the executive director of the Brazilian American Chamber, which I'm enjoying profusely because of all these things, and I'm still on the board in Canada. So if any of you are thinking about becoming, sorry, my daughter's calling me. That's the other thing that comes along with it. But certainly, we have a number of young professionals on the call right now. But I think this was a really good way to go. If you're not already a young professional, it's a good way to meet people. And I'm open. Willie is always open to help you if you have something specific that we can help you with, introductions or whatever. So I was doing those this morning, actually.
And I mean, if any of you is looking into Canada, or if you wanted to learn more about opportunities, let us know. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, send a message, identify yourself, please. But I'm happy to point you in the right direction as well. And even like take advantage, connect with Pedro. He's been through that process. He is a University of Toronto graduate, and he really understands the struggles of Canadians, and as well, like because of his connection with BRASA in the US as well. And I think the comparison between both. And I mean, there's also plenty of, I mean, I'm gonna now put a lot of, there's also plenty of opportunities in Brazil. Latin America is growing, like the opportunities there are growing, especially again, if we're talking about finance, we're talking about technology and innovation. So if this is something that you'll be interested in, at least for the beginning, don't completely disregard the opportunities that you might have in Brazil with your North American diploma, because we all know that that also makes a difference in Brazil as well, right?
Yeah, and come talk to Braz about that. We can like help,
yes.
yeah, connect all of you with companies. I also would like to ask a quick question if we have time to Will. So Will, we've talked about like how some sectors, especially financial sector and technology sectors, are still hiring a lot during the pandemic, and BTG is an example. You've hired like many workers, especially in Brazil this year. But as we've also talked to, like the recruiting process is becoming more and more competitive. So I'd like to know, like for you who has been recruiting for a long time right now, what do you look at in candidates, in entry-level position candidates, and how they can stand out in, like for you, for BTG, and for the market in general, so we can give some advices to the students here?
Yeah, I think, like you said, Rafael, it's a very competitive environment. And like as I mentioned earlier, much more than it was when 30 years ago I was looking for my first job. And just as a side note, when I was doing that, we were still sending out letters and getting letters back, and we used to have a rejection row in my house at Georgetown with all the rejection letters that we were getting from other jobs. So it was kind of funny. But I had one CPA guy in my house, so he got jobs from all the then Big 8, now Big 4, whatever it is. Another guy going to med school, and he didn't get rejected anywhere. And the other guy was also not getting. So I was mostly my wall there, and eventually it wasn't that funny, but I got the job. And then, like John said, you got to leave it in. You know, things happen for a reason, and you got to trust the system to a certain extent. But how do you differentiate yourself from everybody else who's looking for a job? That's really, I think, a hard thing. I think you have to, first of all, show real interest in the job you're applying for. So if you're going to apply for a finance job and you have never done anything finance related, even if you're not a finance major, you don't have to be a finance major, but you weren't part of a club, you didn't do any extracurriculars, you didn't get a summer job, you know, it's going to be hard for you to compete with that at that point, because there are a lot of folks who have been dreaming since they were 12 years old, for whatever crazy reason, to get into finance, to be an investment banker, to give up your life for 2 years in the investment program like I did, working stupid hours. It is a great learning experience, and folks, and it is very competitive. But we also have, I think, those types of jobs are having a tough time recruiting the best people, because you guys want to go and have a different experience, a more entrepreneurial experience. You know, go work for a startup, and I think a place like BTG then becomes interesting, because we do have that opportunity within our digital finance unit. You know, our online bank. We're going after a different client base with different folks that we never really thought. There's a floor in Faria Lima where our office is, where people are, you know, they're all very different from if you go to the 12th floor, where everybody's still wearing dark pants and a white shirt. No ties anymore, but still, that's kind of the Faria Lima uniform, right? But I think you have to show an interest. And I think when the Charlotte's comment about following the company on LinkedIn, I thought that was brilliant, because that's something that, you know, everybody's looking at it, and that's the first thing you do, is you look through the LinkedIn and see what the person's experience is. Have you ever met them, and all that. And I think you're sick to hear about networking, but networking is the key at the end of the day. Having somebody, like I said before, I think having somebody to call in and say, I spoke to Rafael. He's a really smart kid. Sorry to call you kid, by the way. I'm not sure if it's still politically correct or not. But we had a great conversation. He's got a real interest in this because he studied economics and he understands the impact that I think just being able to have that differentiation, you're going to get that first interview. Once you get the first interview, it's up to you to do well, and that's what I always tell people that I like that I meet through LinkedIn or friends of mine or now friends, sons or daughters who are applying for jobs. If I think they're good, I will put that good word in. I won't do it for everybody because you don't want to waste that capital you have. But that's just going to get you in the door. The days that I'm so and so's sibling, so I'm going to get a job. That doesn't work anymore in most places, anyway. But I think making those connections and being able to get ahead of the pack in that way. I have a daughter who's a senior at Georgetown. I see that where she's having, and she's applying for, she's more in other areas, not in finance, but where she's having success is people that knew her and then put in a good word while she's applying for like an FBI job or something like that. So I think that's for me is the most important thing, because just through clicking and applying to 100 jobs online, chances are you're going to hear back from 10 and maybe get one interview. But if you, at the end of the day, all you need is one good one, right? And that's the one you want to make sure you get.
Can I just add, Rafael? I would say that here in Canada, if you don't know someone, or at least someone to put up, it's really hard for you to get that dream job. It's the connection here. We believe that in Brazil, the Kenjica is very important. Here in Canada is also as important as it's in Brazil, and we see that. A lot of immigrants, especially, that come here and they think it's going to be easy because they have all this qualification in Brazil and masters and PhDs and 15 years of experience in amazing companies. They get here, nobody knows where they went to school. Nobody knows that Getúlio Vargas is a great school, or that like having a PhD from USP is like amazing. So it's all about who can advocate for you to make sure that people understand the qualifications that you have. Of course, this is not really 100% for this group because you all went to school in the US, but again, it's the whole point of like making sure you connect with the people that that you ask for people for the good word, and you get that first interview. Because again, I agree with you. Like after the first, if you get at the door, the chances then it's on you. But at least you got at that door, so it's already like 50% done.
Agree.
I have a follow-up question. I already asked 3 times. Someone can go ahead. Okay.
Sorry, I have a question out of curiosity for John, Carol, and Will. So the hiring process has changed from what it used to look like to everything moving virtually. What is temporary and what is not temporary? What's here to stay? In your opinion, there's the vaccine coming out. What is permanent?
I'll go first because we're having those discussions in our partners meetings every week, and the answer is we don't know. What we do know for now is that if BTG had to tell everybody that they have to get to the office on Monday, we wouldn't have enough seats in Brazil. In New York, we'd be okay, but in Brazil, in São Paulo and Rio, where we have our major offices, we wouldn't be able to sit everybody. Forget that you have to sit, 2 meters, 6 feet apart. Even with our seating the way it was, we were out of space. And we've hired a lot more people since then. So there's going to be a certain amount of folks who've never seen our office and may never see it, or maybe they'll see it once a month or whatever it is. More in the IT area, back office, those types of services. I think if you're a front office person, if you're a banker in our wealth division, if you're a new banker in our advisors division or a digital bank, I think you're probably going to be expect to see a little bit more of the office. But I think that thing that you have to be in the office from, call it 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 6-7 days a week, I think I think people like us, I wouldn't put Carol in that conversation, but like John and I, who are a little bit older and used to think that I would work from home on Friday, and that was really work in the morning and then take the afternoon off to go golfing or whatever it is that you enjoy doing. Now we're working more for remotely because there's no start time, there's no end time, and if you're working with different time zones. But now people, I think, senior management understands that you're working because they call you on Teams or whatever, and you answer. It's like, oh, this guy's actually working. Yeah, we're working just as hard, if not harder, maybe smarter, spending less time on commute, more time in front of the computer. So I think that's going to be more acceptable. I think there's going to be a hybrid mode there in some positions. But I can tell you, the operating committee for BTG never stopped going to the office. They felt very important that they had to meet the way they did in person as much as possible. Of course, some of them got sick, some of them would go from home, and actually worked that they could do it from here as well. But for the most part, they were still going there. And today we have about 20% of our population going to the office around the world. So I don't think anybody knows the answer yet. If somebody tells you they do, they're lying. But I think there's going to be a lot more flexibility going forward because A, it works. B, everybody's looking for more diversity in their workforce. If you want a more diverse workforce, whether it's gender or whether it's the geography, whatever it is, you're going to have to be more flexible with what's available. And technology works. I mean, I'm here logged onto my computer. I have two computers going on. My laptop works just like it's from the office, and I can connect to my computer in the office if the laptop's not working, and it's just like it being in the office. I have two more screens, so why do I need to be in the office? Especially because in my case, my team is all in Latin America, and my sales guys are in Europe or in Asia. I'm doing everything I need to do from here. But I went to the office yesterday. It was actually nice to have the bigger screens and everything else, and not having the noise from the cleaning crew that today happens to be the day, and you may have heard it in the background. It's different, right? But I'm a lot more productive working from home now than I ever was before, and I think we've proven that it works.
I'm going to add two things to that. First, there was a lot of stigma associated with people not coming into the office. That's gone. That is gone. We went remote immediately, and we haven't had any in-person stuff, but we also have a rather older demographic. I'm a youngster compared to a lot of our members. So, and Will, God, he's a babe in diapers. Second, there's things that work better this way, as he said, and those things probably are going to become permanent. We were able to get speakers. We don't have to worry about them being in New York anymore. We don't have to do anything. That's not going to change. That's really been a huge benefit for the chamber, and I know that's been a benefit for my colleagues in the financial markets and other places as well. So how we come back is tough. It's the vaccines are very promising. We're going to have 2 already being given out within 2 weeks. It looks like the Moderna one has already applied for emergency, and so far, what I can see in asking my medical colleagues that know better, these are really extraordinary. And I said at the beginning of this thing, we did a pandemic webinar. I said I think the creativity of human beings is going to win out. And look at how fast this is. Absolutely extraordinary how fast these things have come about. So, herd immunity. That's a big word, I guess. People, I think, sort of misunderstand what that means. It means once you get enough people that have already infected and survived or whatever, then it limits the amount that you can spread it. So how you get there is fast is by vaccines, or it's unfortunately it's in the population everywhere. It's global, and we still have some policies that were meant to stop the spread or slow the spread, because it didn't stop the spread certainly, but because it's already local, it's really hard for those policies to have much effect anymore. So the main thing is to develop techniques, which we have. That's why the mortality rate is nowhere near as high as the sort of new infections to deal with it. So I'm still optimistic about this. We have to be very cautious here at the chamber because of our demographic, so to speak. So.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Will as well. I mean, who knows? If I had to bet right now, I would say that at least for the next couple of years will be a hybrid model. So with people going back, some people going back to the office, some people staying home. Maybe people will go to the office, like we said, once a month, once a week for a specific meeting. But, or if you're client facing, like if you need to connect with clients, maybe you'll be more out there. For back office, you can do your work from home. I think the biggest struggle right now is for a lot of people is to kind of like figure it out when your day starts and when your day ends. Because I mean, we know the investment bankers had that lifestyle for a long time. A lot of other industries have not. And I think what I realize is that there is no more, okay, it's 7 p.m. or it's 8 p.m. I'm shutting my stuff. I'm getting my car. I'm going to, or I'm taking subway. I'm going home. My day is over. The day is never over anymore. Like you're always something happening. There's always messaging coming up. And because of technology, you're much more like, no, don't contact me only via email. You send me a message, send me a WhatsApp. So this kind of like amplifies the connections and amplifies the amount of work. And I think in the future, we're going to see how people are going to find that balance between working from home and finishing your day and then moving on to your personal, let's say, life. I think that I agree with John in terms of the chamber for us. I mean, it kind of like gives us the flexibility of being able to bring speakers to participate in discussions like that, like this one that probably wouldn't be possible a year ago, in terms of connecting with speakers from all over the world. And another interesting thing is about the job market, right? Like, again, you don't have to be in New York to work in New York. You don't have to be in Toronto to work downtown Toronto. And what we've been seeing, that's a lot of people moving out of the big centers and still working in some industries because they don't need to be there anymore. And I think with this moving forward, maybe you can apply for jobs that are located in Europe as long as you work on their time zone. And maybe you can apply for jobs that are not necessarily in your own city. So I think that there is pros and cons, and it's going to be a while until we really understand what is here to stay and what is going to go back to the way it used to be. But I think that there's a lot of online connections is something that, in my opinion, is here to stay, and is a matter of you practicing, learning how to do that, because it's definitely going to help you advance in your career for sure.
I joke that I'm going to go have breakfast in Copa Cozinha, and then it's Sofalandia to watch some for my vacation, you know. But how many of you think you can multitask? Raise your hands. A lot of people are not showing themselves again. Really, how many people really think they can multitask? Well, that's true. You can't. I had a soccer coach in high school, and I think he learned soccer from a book, but I learned it in Brazil. And he used to say, I used to know Albert Einstein, and he couldn't do two things at once. How do you think you can do two things at once? And it's tiring. And that tells you how the efficiency of agglomeration is. I don't know what you guys feel like at the end of the day, but I can barely remember my name. And it doesn't have that much to do with my age. It's just very tiring. And it's also not efficient because most everything is hub and spoke. You have to do almost everything other than a meeting like this bilaterally. So having more of these is important. But it's still, and then someone also said that we're not use, 20% of your energy goes to your brain, and apparently we're using more than that now. And that's why you're so tired at the end of the day. Multitasking is you basically shift back and forth between the different things you're doing. You don't do any one of them, you don't do them simultaneously. And that's extremely tiring, and it's very inefficient. And I have to correct myself sometimes because I keep doing it. But we will go back to something. We just don't know. We're mostly 80% remote now. It's not going to be 100% not remote for sure. But it's going to be less than we are now, but that's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
And it's hard for businesses, do we invest in going back all the way, or do we invest everybody remote? I think those two extremes are probably a mistake because there are huge efficiencies, especially in financial markets, in tech firms, where you need to exchange ideas. And it's so much easier when you're in a room with 10 people than even a Zoom thing is good, but doing it bilaterally by email, everything has to be done by email or phone call. It's very tiring. So anyway, I'm done. I won't say anything more.
And John, it's also interesting because what I realize is that before you had those informal conversations in the hallways of the office, right? And that doesn't exist anymore. So everything now has to be a booked meeting. So now it's not like you met someone getting a coffee, exchange some ideas, that problem is solved, or that the discussion is done. Now it's like, can I have 15 minutes? And then you talk, and then you always have the introduction. So I think that is also something that we lost a little bit of that agility of just kind of having sideway conversation with our colleagues and brainstorming. And it's like, the question is, how can we get that back on online? And is it that even going to be something that we need to get back, right?
And not only that, but the social aspect of work as well. We need to schedule half hours and
exactly, like but at the same time, you have more access to people that you wouldn't have access otherwise, right? So more senior leadership and like people like John and Will, you probably wouldn't be able to book those conversations with them. And now, because they're online, I think we feel like they're more available as well. I don't know. What do you think about that, Will?
Well, what I was going to say is, I'm Brazilian as well, even though my name doesn't give it away. But raised here with an English grandfather, I was always on time for all my meetings. And as we know, Brazilians are notorious for not being on time. And when I joined BTG, my first job in a Brazilian bank, no meeting ever started on time, ever. But now that we're all on Teams or Zoom, and it shows up and you click, there's no excuse that I wasn't one for. So I think if one thing is we've become more efficient as well, because if you're 1 minute late, people are calling you up, sending you a message like, "Where the hell are you?" when the meeting is starting. And for Brazilians, as we all know, that was never the case. So I'm very happy about that part of it, be able to be more efficient. And yeah, the calendar is full. You look at the Outlook, and it starts at 7:30 in the morning with my first team meeting, and it usually doesn't go in. Especially when it's only a 1 hour difference with Brazil, it goes into much later. But at least people are being more respectful over people's time, because they realize that you got a half hour and then there's another half hour meeting, and then it keeps going on.
Traffic's not an excuse anymore, right?
Yeah, no, traffic or weather.
There's no excuse. You're just being late.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, I look forward to meeting a lot of you that I don't know via LinkedIn or whatever. Hopefully over a coffee some point, a Canadian beer, whatever it is. It's been a pleasure to be here with you guys. And good luck with this search. I know it can be stressful, but as John said earlier, it'll work out. So thanks for the invite, John, for having me here.
No, thank you very much, Will. Thanks, Charlotte. She's gone. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you,
Carl, as well.
Carolina. Thank you. Nice meeting you. Anytime you come to Canada, let us know. Take you for like some Canadian beer. I would say Canadian wine, but it's not really good. So
yeah, that was
okay. Yeah, they got to open the border first, right? So
yes, they do. Yeah.
So
now with Biden, who knows? Maybe they would be sooner.
I had a victory dance in Niagara on the lake when we had the 150th anniversary of the War of 1812. That was kind of fun. No, it's 200th anniversary of the War of 1812. Every night they had a fireworks show that was supposed to represent the Americans burning down and I used to do, I do a celebration, whip my shirt off, run around. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
that image, John.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate. Thank you, John, for having us as well. And I don't know if everybody knows, but John is also in the board of the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce. So he has one foot in each country and kind of like a hand in Brazil as well. So thank you so much for having us. And I hope this is the first of many other joint events.
We'll do this again. Nice. Thank you very much, everybody. And we have a webinar on Thursday if you're interested. It's the Suspended Import State Value Added Tax, the ICMS, cash flow. We did one in Portuguese. We're doing this one in English at 10 o'clock on Thursday, November 3rd. So for those of you
and if anyone is interested as well, I'm going to do my little promo here today. We have this afternoon at 2 o'clock, we're doing a webinar on essential tips on how to move your company to succeed in Canada by moving your company to Canada. So if anyone wants to hear about immigration or have questions about immigration or have an immigration lawyer joining us today at 2 p.m. for a conversation on how to succeed in the Canadian market. So information is on our website or LinkedIn page as well.
Yeah,
thank you everyone
for inviting us, Brasa. And also I'm available through LinkedIn or email if anyone wants to know more about BRASA, about our scholarship program. I would be happy to talk.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Rafael.
I wanted to thank
Maybe we'll see you in Canada or in New York. I mean, Joe Kogan's a good friend of mine. He worked for me kind of. So, and also Eduardo Suarez, the chief economist or the chief strategist. Good to, well, great to see you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Take
John.
care.
Thank you, Tati, for organizing it. Thank you, everyone in the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce.
Take care. Stay safe.
Bye.
Stay well.